One evening, Jack, Peter, and Dean watch their wives, Alice, Peg, and Bunny balance drinks on their heads. Suddenly, Peg bumps into Alice, making them drop their drinks. With that, Bunny wins. The night continues with more drinking and dancing. Afterward, Jack drives recklessly in circles, playfully scaring his wife. With both laughing, he starts driving home while making out with Alice. The next morning, as Alice cooks breakfast, the house starts shaking, so the couple hold on to their items to keep them from falling. Once it passes, she wonders if it was a drill or an explosion, but Jack dodges the topic. Almost simultaneously, Jack, Dean, and Peter get into their cars while their wives bid them goodbye. The men drive off from their idyllic neighborhood and towards the Victory headquarters. Alice spends the day tidying their home before attending a ballet class with the other wives taught by the Victory founder's wife, Shelley. She announces that the Victory Project has hired a new employee, so his wife, Violet Johnson, joins them. Later, Bunny shares that their neighbor, Margaret, didn't attend because she was sick. She also shares that she heard that the new employee is a fool, so Alice wonders if her husband should recruit someone new. However, her friend reveals that Jack might be promoted soon. Alice later spots Margaret holding a toy plane. This triggers a memory of a man's face, but Alice disregards this. Later, she prepares dinner but discovers that their eggs are empty. Soon, Jack returns and starts kissing his wife. He leads her to the table, and she spills their dinner as the couple get intimate. One morning at a pool party, Alice starts humming a song but doesn't know where the song came from. Violet suggests it's a children's song, but Alice points out that she doesn't have kids. She explains that they don't want any yet since they're still having fun, and Bunny jokes that they're on a perpetual honeymoon. Alice quips that Bunny's kids like her more anyway, and her friend doesn't deny this. Alice then recalls a man humming the song until Bunny snaps her out of it. Soon, Alice attends the Victory Project's party, where she finds a scale model of the town. She runs her finger along the roads, passing by a sign that says only employees can pass. The husbands and wives get to know the Johnsons during the party. When Bill wonders about their boss, Alice overhears Dean commenting on how extraordinary the man is. Shelley gathers everyone while her husband and Victory Project founder Frank stands beside her. She welcomes Bill and Violet into the company before recounting how her husband built something that gives them a better life where they only have each other. Suddenly, Margaret asks why they're here. Her husband Ted pulls her away as she adds that they shouldn't be here. This has everyone concerned, so Frank explains how Margaret and Ted are going through a difficult time. He admits that Margaret's question was valid since their landscape used to be barren, but they've chosen to mine its unbridled potential. He points to Dr. Collins, who was one of the first who helped him build the community. Then he turns to Bill, calling him an explorer who joined them in this adventure. He notes how the men ask for strength, support, food at home, a clean house, and discretion, which are difficult without their wives. With that, he thanks and kisses his wife, earning the people's cheer. Alice notices that Jack is gone, so she searches for him. Instead, she finds Ted and Margaret. The woman claims that she's being hidden away, but her husband assures Alice that she just needs to rest, then shuts the curtains. Confused, Alice continues searching for her husband and finds him fixing his tie in Frank's room. Jack then kisses his wife, but Alice reminds him that people are outside. Still, he gets intimate with her, even after his boss walks in. Jack continues while Alice stares at Frank until he leaves. One day, the wives are at the mall, but Bunny notes that Victory has things money can't buy. Peg agrees since the weather is always nice, and they don't need to learn how to drive. Alice argues that she likes to drive, but Bunny thinks she just likes her husband teaching her. They then discuss Margaret making a scene at the party, which Bunny thinks Ted could get fired for. Hearing this, Peg declares that if Peter got fired, she'd kill herself because she can't live elsewhere. Alice argues that Margaret had a hard time, but Bunny points out that Margaret lost her mind and took her son outside town because she hallucinated. She reminds them that all the company asks from them is to stay there where it's safe. Margaret's son was never found, but the woman claimed that the company took him. The building shudders and Peg wonders what the men are doing. Bunny reminds her that they're here because they believe in the mission. The wives' jobs are just as vital, since without them caring for their husbands, the men can't change the world. That night, Alice dreams about odd-looking dances and wakes up with a gasp. The following day, she does her tasks while listening to Frank on the radio, telling them to stand by their pain because what they want is on the other side. Later, she rides the trolley but doesn't exit at the shopping mall as the other wives did. Alice explains to the driver that she just wants some fresh air. Suddenly, she sees an airplane flying, but the driver doesn't see it. The plane then crashes behind the hills, and the woman demands the driver to head there. However, he refuses since he's not allowed there, so she goes alone. Alice runs to the site, ignoring a warning sign about hazardous materials ahead. Soon, she reaches a dome structure on top of the hill. Cautiously, she approaches the dome, and a red glow emits from inside. This puts her into a trance, seeing odd images with Frank's voice telling her to sink into how things are supposed to be. Suddenly, Alice wakes up at home and finds Jack cooking in the kitchen. He claims to have arrived some hours ago and found her asleep in the bedroom. She recounts that she saw a plane crash, but he doesn't believe her. She then dismisses it as a dream, so Jack urges her to relax. He then asks if she loves him. Seeing a glimpse of another memory, Alice replies that she loves him the most. The next day starts as usual, but as Alice wipes the window, the wall behind her closes in, trapping her. She snaps out of it just as the phone rings. On the other line is Margaret, who knows that she saw something. She insists that everyone is lying to them, but Alice refuses to believe her and hangs up. During ballet class, Alice sees Margaret in her reflection. Margaret starts banging her head until the mirror cracks, making Alice scream. Everyone stops and looks at her with fear. When Alice turns, the mirror is back to normal. She runs back to her house but stops when she sees Margaret standing on her roof. The other woman suddenly slices her own throat and falls. Alice runs to help, but men in red jumpsuits grab her. That night, Alice insists on what she saw, but Jack argues that Ted claimed Margaret just slept while cleaning the windows. She refuses to believe this, stressing that Margaret slit her own throat. Tearfully, she realizes that Margaret asked for help, but she ignored her, so Alice blames herself for what happened. Margaret told her someone was coming for her because she knew something, so Alice asks her husband why they would lie about her. When Jack keeps ignoring her, she asks about the Victory Project. He insists that he can't talk about it, and when Alice presses further, he yells at her. Jack reminds her that he's part of something important, but her ramblings would put their lives at risk, so he begs her to stop. The next day, Alice stores leftovers but decides to wrap her head with a cling wrap. Soon, she's suffocating, so she desperately claws herself free. Collins checks on her, thinking she's just exhausted, and Jack shares that she saw Margaret fall. Collins comments that Margaret was embarrassed about the accident, but Alice recounts that the woman slit her throat. The doctor assures her that the stress just distorted her memories, so he prescribes her medicine. When the doctor opens his bag, she sees a folder labeled security risk with Margaret's name. Jack refuses the medicine, promising to handle things on their own. Alice then asks about Margaret, but Collins reminds her about the doctor-patient confidentiality. Still, she insists on knowing how they fixed her, so the doctor explains that Margaret is physically fine. However, she had outbursts and paranoia, so Ted left the Victory Project to take care of her. When Jack walks the doctor to his car, Alice notices that Collins has left his briefcase. Quickly, she unlocks it, but Collins returns, so she gives it back as if nothing happened. With that, the men leave. Hurriedly, she retrieves Margaret's file from the couch, but the pages are mostly blacked out, giving her no information. To relax, Alice draws herself a bath. As she looks into her reflection, however, she sees the strange images again. Suddenly, Alice finds herself already in the tub while Jack hurries her to get dressed. He then sits next to her and suggests having a baby. This surprises his wife, so Jack asks her to think about it before leaving. Later, the couple attends a party, but Alice notices Frank and Collins watching her. A woman starts performing on stage, and Alice recognizes her in one of her dreams. Overwhelmed, she begs her husband to take her home, but he just advises her to drink. Frank then takes the stage and calls Jack. This scares Alice, but her husband still steps on stage, and Frank announces Jack's promotion to the senior advisory board. As everyone cheers for her husband, Alice watches in tears, fearing what this all means. She retreats into the bathroom while Jack dances on stage with Frank's encouragement. While staring at the mirror, she recalls comforting Jack after he'd lost his job. Bunny suddenly finds her, asking what happened. Alice then rambles about Margaret, claiming she was right, but she was silenced and ended up killing herself. Alice recounts how she went to the dome and started remembering things when she touched the glass. Hearing this, her friend scolds her for going to the headquarters and acting like a child while her husband is being celebrated. She then storms off. The next day, Alice tries to focus on her wifely duties. That evening, the couple throws a dinner party, and Frank joins them. While Alice cooks in the kitchen, Frank approaches her and expresses sympathy for how Bunny didn't believe her. However, he points out that she didn't believe Margaret either. Seeing her shocked expression, Frank comments that he's been waiting for someone to challenge him like her. Soon, they gather at the table, and to everyone's surprise, Alice takes the seat at the head of the table, right in front of Frank. She then loudly asks where Violet is from. Violet says she's from Philadelphia, where Peg is also from. Alice points out how most women there are from the same places. Peg comments that she prefers the sunshine here, so Alice wonders when was the last time they've been to the beach. When no one answers, she assumes that everyone's been either to Hilton Head, Cape Cod, or Jersey Shore, and everyone honeymooned in Sea Island, Poconos, or Niagara Falls. She then correctly guesses that the Johnsons met when Violet dropped her ticket at the train station and Bill picked it up. This was the same story of how Margaret and Ted met, along with another couple in the neighborhood. The others assume it's a coincidence, but Alice thinks there's a limited number of stories they can be told until they actually start remembering things. Alice suggests that Frank is doing something to them. However, he suggests she's experiencing delusions and memory problems, which are what happened to Margaret. Still, Alice points out that they don't really know what the Victory Project is, so Frank asks if that's why she went to the headquarters. This surprises everyone while Frank continues that she broke the rule and put everyone's lives in danger. Alice insists that Frank is hiding something to keep them trapped, so the man asks if anyone feels trapped, but no one answers. He argues that Alice's psychosis makes her feel trapped. Alice still tries to discredit him, pointing out how his company produces everything, even their food, so he can control them. Suddenly, Shelley yells at her for insulting her husband. Refusing to listen to her further, she walks out, and everyone, including Jack, follows her lead. Frank then expresses his disappointment at Alice before calling Jack to talk. Alice cedes in rage until Jack returns. He accuses her of sabotaging him, which she denies. She argues that Frank confessed to her in the kitchen, but Jack doesn't believe her. She insists that she doesn't trust this place, and what matters is they're together no matter where they go. Finally, Jack agrees to leave. Soon, they get in the car, but Jack doesn't drive. Instead, he apologizes just before the men in red arrive. They pull Alice out of the car while she begs her husband to let her stay. Jack just tearfully apologizes as his wife is pulled away. Alice is soon subjected to shock therapy. This triggers her memory of her life with Jack before the Victory Project. Jack had lost his job, so Alice took extra shifts in the hospital, where she was a surgeon. One night, Jack watched a video by Frank, which he stopped as soon as Alice arrived home. He complained that he hadn't eaten because she never told him what she wanted for dinner. Alice reminded him that she didn't have her phone in the OR. He then tried to initiate intimacy, but Alice complained that she had just finished a 30-hour shift and had to return to the hospital soon, so she needed sleep. Disappointed, Jack continued watching Frank's video, where he encouraged his viewers to be the man they claimed to be. Days later, Alice happily returns home, where Jack and Bunny welcome her back. When Bunny shares that Dean is playing golf, Alice encourages Jack to go since he's been taking care of her and deserves some fun. The day goes by like usual, with husbands heading to work and wives doing chores and practicing ballet. When Jack returns home, Alice greets him, and they start making out. She then continues preparing dinner while Jack starts singing a song. Alice realizes it's the song she'd been humming, triggering her memory. Before arriving at the Victory Project, Jack applied to the company and consented to put his wife under a simulation. In reality, Alice is bedridden while inside the simulated reality. Jack took care of her during the hours he exited the simulation. During this, he sang to her, hence why she kept hearing the song. After taking care of her, Jack returned to the simulation, which began with the odd images that Alice had been seeing. Alice collapses as she finally sees the truth. Jack tries to comfort her, but she demands to know what he did. Instead of answering, he stresses that he loves her. He asks her to think about what she really wants, but she accuses him of taking her life. Jack reminds her that she was always working, but Alice defends that she loved her job. He insists that she was miserable, and Alice stresses that it was her life, so he has no right to take it from her. Still, Jack yells that he gave her a better one. He insists that Frank built this world so they can live a good life, but he still has to leave daily to earn money to keep them there while Alice stays in their happy life. He stresses that they're perfect there, but she points out that he made her think she was crazy. Realizing this, Jack apologizes but reminds her that what matters is that they're together no matter where they are. Crying, Alice asks if there are others like her. She then realizes that all the wives and kids are also stuck there, but her husband assures her that the kids aren't real. He begs her to stay, embracing her tightly to keep her from leaving. This starts to suffocate her, so she grabs a glass and slams it on his head. Later, Bunny finds the two on the floor. Meanwhile, Collins calls Frank to report that Jack is dead. Bunny helps Alice as the other tries to explain everything. However, Bunny already knows and warns her that the project will kill her in the real world for what she did. She explains that when someone dies there, they die in the real world, so Jack can't put her back. Bunny confesses that she signed up for the simulation because her kids are alive there. Alice breaks down as Bunny assures her that the other women aren't part of this. Hearing this, Alice leaves. Their neighbors see a bloodied Alice, and lamps suddenly explode. As the other wives watch her, they start becoming aware. Suddenly, Bunny yells for Alice to go just as Dean rushes to her. He tries to stop Alice, but his wife pulls him away, allowing the other woman to drive away. Men in red chase after Alice as she rushes to the headquarters. They try to grab her from the car while Collins drives straight in front of her. Quickly, Alice hits the brakes, leading the men to crash into each other. However, more men arrive, so she continues driving. In their house, Frank receives a report that Collins is dead. He orders his men not to let Alice reach the headquarters, and Shelley overhears this. When he turns, his wife stabs him, reclaiming her control. control. Meanwhile, Alice drives up the hill but accidentally gets the car stuck, so she runs. She reaches the dome but hallucinates Jack asking her not to leave. She takes comfort in his arms, remembering their happy life. Still, she chooses real life and exits the simulated paradise.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.